Good
Good
morning,
morning, New Life.
Happy Valentine's Day. We're the Enyarts. I'm Christy.
I'm Brooklyn.
I'm Indy.
I'm Joel.
Welcome to church.
Woo.
Happy Valentine's Day, New Life. Welcome to church. We're so happy that you joined us this morning. Today we're kicking off a brand new series called Faith Wins, and it's a series of interviews over the next couple of weeks, and we are so excited that you joined us today. We're going to be starting off with an interview with Ron and Angela later on in the service. But right now, I want to invite you to fill out your online Connect card. This is our way of connecting with you, of partnering with you in prayer during the week. We have a team of men and women who would love to pray for you. And maybe you don't have a prayer request today, but maybe later on this week something will happen and you would like some prayer. Well, I want you to know that we have prayer available on our website all the time at newlifepetaluma.com. You could head there any day of the week, fill out an online prayer request, and our prayer team will be covering you in prayer as well. At this time, we'd also like to collect our giving, and we give generously because we have a generous God. And I want to thank each and every one of you who partner with us at New Life to bring the message of Jesus to our city. And, one of the early Christian writers, Paul, talks about this in the scriptures, and he says this, he says, "Remember this, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. You must each decide in your heart how much to give, and don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure. For God loves a person who gives cheerfully, and God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others." And one of the ways that our church is giving back to others is through an upcoming missions trip to Mexico. We are super excited to tell you more about that today. Ron and Jeff and Matt are going to tell us a little bit more about that. But if you would like to give to New Life, I just want to encourage you to head to our website, newlifepetaluma.com, or the link in the chat space. Here's more about our Mexico trip.
Hi, everybody. This is Ron, and I'm here with two of my really good friends. These are guys who are longtime members of New Life. They have a big heart for the neighbors to the south, the people of Mexico, and they have been going down and leading a number of short-term mission trips down into Mexico. The distinguished-looking gentleman with the silver hair is Jeff Eisenhower, and the distinguished-looking gentleman with the darker hair is Matt Duffy. And guys, I know you've been going down for years, so who went first and how long ago did you go? And so, Jeff, do you know the answer to that?
Oh, well, I went down first and Matt was started the year after that.
Oh,
and so I think I've been down there 5 times.
Okay. And so, Matt, I'll direct this question to you. How has going to Mexico changed your life?
Well, I'd say it's changed it kind of in 2 dimensions, if you will, because the very first time I went, I brought my then 10-year-old daughter, and it's something that we do every year. So it's become like a special father-daughter bonding time, which of course has its own amazing value and thrill. And she's obviously, she's 17 now, and heck, she's looking forward to this next adventure with me. The other aspect is it opens your eyes to the opportunities to serve God in a place and with people that you may have, I certainly felt I had nothing to offer. So understanding that, wow, I do have something to offer, even in something I know nothing about. Jeff knows how to build a house. I knew nothing. I could pick up a hammer and pound a nail, and my Spanish certainly is not much more than hola, but to learn that I can be part of changing lives is mighty exciting.
That's awesome. Jeff, how about you? How has it changed your life?
Well, it's Probably more than anything, it's getting to see God at work everywhere. It's not just here in Petaluma. It's not Sonoma County. It's not California. It's everywhere. And you realize that by going into another country and seeing how God works there. And a lot of it's through the missionaries that have moved down there and lived there and are working with the people, serving God and the people there.
Wow. That's awesome. So now I have a couple of practical questions. The first one is, with all the restrictions in place, and we don't know for sure what will be in place when we take the trip in June, is it actually legal to cross the Mexican border and do this, or are we sneaking?
As far as I know, it's legal to go down and legal to come back in. If you're flying into Mexico, flying back, there would require some COVID tests to get back into the country. But coming over the border in vehicles, as far as I know, it's fine. And WHAM has gone down there and they've made trips and have not had any problems.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So other churches are currently doing this with WHAM. They're crossing the border. And as I understand it, we fly into San Diego and then we get in a van and we physically cross the border. We don't fly into Mexico.
Correct. Yeah.
That's
okay.
Correct.
So secondly, and Matt, maybe you can address this, will we be safe?
Well, that's certainly a question that was near and dear to my heart and my wife's heart when I first went with, as I mentioned, our 10-year-old daughter. And I've also had the thrill of bringing my niece and nephew, who were also kids. So that was certainly something that was important for me to understand. And I can certainly say in the 6 times I've been down, I have never felt unsafe, if you will. Everywhere we are, I have always felt safe. This is where we are going in Baja. There is certainly not a cartel environment or risk, if you will. So from a safety perspective, I have certainly felt completely safe, with my kids every time we've been down there. And the WHAM team is so experienced with working with groups and understanding how to navigate, the landscape. That certainly is we ride on their coattails from a safety perspective.
That's awesome. So for those that might not be familiar, YWAM stands for Youth with a Mission. They're an international Christian organization that's been around for decades. And I'm sure that the people that are going down there with them right now, there are certain COVID protocols that they're required to meet. And we don't know what those will be in June, but whatever is required of us, we will certainly follow those COVID protocols because keeping our people safe is our highest priority. So let me give a little information about the trip. As you heard last week, we are doing a whole new dimension to this trip. We are inviting everyone in the church to make this a church-wide project. So the people that are going down who will be pounding the nails or working in the orphanage, they're already putting money into this trip. They're buying their own airfare. They're paying for their housing and their food and all that. So for all the rest of us in the church, Joel has said to us, why don't we have the whole church contribute to building the house and buying the materials? So we would like to raise $8,000. That's what it would take to buy the materials for the house, to also put in a bathroom in the house and a kitchen in the house. It would also give us some money to work with local partners on the mission field there that we like to support and work with. And so for all the rest of us, we're trying to raise that $8,000, and it can make this thing not just a project of 10 or 20 people, but a project for a whole church. For those of you who are interested in going either on the house building trip or the orphanage trip, They cost virtually the same. It's about $600 to $700 total. That includes airfare, a little extra spending money, housing, food. That's everything. And you could put up a $150 deposit now because we have to do that to reserve our place. And then the rest of it you can contribute later. So here's how you do that. You go to our website, whether you want to contribute, just make a donation to the house, or whether you want to go on the trip. You go to our website, you select upcoming events, scroll down to Mexico mission trip, click on the picture, and everything is right there for you. So gentlemen, I need to say one other thing. The house build trip is the week before Father's Day. We leave the Sunday before Father's Day, and we get back the Saturday immediately preceding Father's Day. So gentlemen, one last question before we sign off, and that is, if you had to give one good reason why people should go on this trip, Jeff, what would you say?
For me, it's every time I've gone down there, I usually don't sleep well because I wake up at like 4 in the morning. For some reason, God talks to me in some fantastic ways down there, opens my eyes to, and it's just overwhelming in many cases. So it's a wonderful experience.
That's awesome. Matt, how about you?
I would say for me, it's the thrill of being invited to be part of God's rescue mission. For me, I know I was rescued when I was 20 years old and started following Jesus. And I soon learned that I wasn't rescued just to kind of sit back and watch, but I was invited to be part of it. And when we go, we're invited to be part of what God is doing to change lives. And it's exciting. It's an honor. So, it's an honor to go.
That's awesome. So friends, there you have it. Mexico Mission Trip 2021, the week before Father's Day, and we all have a chance to participate. Thank you.
Yes, I believe in a brighter day. got you, you got me. Yeah, we lean on each other, just you wait and see. A little bit of faith goes a long, long way. And I believe in the brighter day. Yeah, say I believe in the brighter day. When the sun is shining and the clouds roll away, when the whole I found is here to stay. Now I believe in a brighter day. You know, I believe in a brighter day. You know, I believe in a brighter day.
Good morning, New Life. It's Angela here, and I have just the best husband. I don't mean that to be competitive, but he booked me a little getaway for myself. So I'm up in Clear Lake while we're recording this, and I just love a change of scenery, and I just love change in general. Although this year has pushed my change quota, maybe for you as well, but I'm so happy to be here this morning because we're doing something a little different. We always want our content on Sunday mornings to be an encouragement to you and a way for us to learn together, because there's always room for us to understand a little bit better how Jesus's message brings us hope and peace and joy and explains how life works. But we usually do it in a format of a teacher. And this morning, we're going to do it in a format of a conversation. And so without further ado, my conversation buddy is Ron.
Hey, everybody. It's so good to see you. Hey, it's Valentine's Day, and that's a very special day for certainly everyone who has a significant other. And so I just didn't want that to go unnoticed. I'm super excited about what we're going to do today. So hey, happy Sunday and happy Valentine's Day as well.
Well, so Valentine's Day is the day of love. And if you have a significant other, then the pressure is on you. And if you don't have a significant other, it doesn't matter. It's just a day of love. Speaking of, you are not my significant other, but I got you a Valentine.
Oh, yeah? Oh, look at that. That is hugs and kisses. Now, from you, something to do with dogs, I get it. That's I should have expected that. And it's such a high quality gift as well. I notice at the bottom it says milk chocolate flavored. So I'm not even sure how much milk chocolate is in this Valentine, but I am going to enjoy it. And I will think of you whenever I take a bite.
Well, it might just be your first bite, and then you're like, no, thank you. I'll just take your love and not your chocolate. But for whatever format Valentine takes for you, it is our love that we want to send you. Happy Valentine's Day. We are happy to be spending it with you. Okay, so this series we're kicking off, you and I get to kick off, is called Faith Wins. And I love this sentiment. I just love it. I would like to hear if you resonate with it and what it means to you and what you're hoping we get out of it.
You know, Angela, as I think about that title, I remember as a kid sitting in church at my grandfather's church where he was the pastor. And up on the stage above where he stood when he spoke, there was a giant plaque, and I must have read it hundreds of times. And it said, "This is the victory that overcomes the world, even our faith." And those words come from the pen of John the Apostle, who was one of Jesus' closest followers. And it's just etched in my memory and in my consciousness. Faith wins.
In what way does faith win? Like, Okay, ultimately, at the end of the world, those who had faith have eternal life. Like, in what way do you think faith wins?
So, as I was doing research for this series, I just wanted to go back in scripture and pull up all kinds of passages on faith. And one of the translations of this passage that says, "This is the victory that overcomes the world," actually dug into it. And its translation said, "This is the way we overcome the pull of the world in our lives." It's actually through our faith. And what I got out of that is faith gives us a different perspective. We know how things look, but often how things look is not how they really are. And faith is what gives us that perspective that God sees.
So you're hearkening back to the series we just came out of, which is Look Up, that you can look here and you can see the reality that is here, but it's not the only reality that's at play. And it's not even the biggest reality at play. And in that, I can see how the phrase faith wins. This reality, if we will have the faith both to look up and to believe that, it overcomes whatever disillusionment is at this level, or discouragement or frustration or whatever. It literally wins.
Yeah. Yes. Paul wrote and said, "We walk by faith and not by sight." So it's as if we need to take the spectacles of faith and put them over our eyes, because they enable us to see things that our eyes by themselves cannot see.
Okay, so part of the beauty of this being a conversation instead of a teaching is we get the ability, I get the ability to poke at you. So
okay,
what does that look like for you when you look back on this last year as you're headed into whatever season is coming next? Literally, how are you leaning into your faith?
So, like everybody else, 2020 was a difficult year for me. Anybody who says, "Oh, it was pretty normal for me," needs to have a reality check, or at least a transparency check, because this has been a difficult and challenging year. Like you said earlier, you like change. I love change. I see change as the gateway to growth. And I want to grow, and I always want to learn. But this last year, there's been a lot of change. And a friend of mine shared with me an illustration the other day that has sort of given me words for this thing that I've been trying to lean into. And it was the idea that underneath the surface of the ocean water, next to the shore, there are these giant coral reefs. And they're beautiful. And they take root in the bottom of the ocean. And in that way, they're unshakable. And when the waves come in, they create all sorts of havoc, and they never quit. They are relentless. And in some ways, 2020 has been like one wave of change and challenge after another, after another, after another. And it seems like, wow, how do I keep my equilibrium? And so Peter writes and says that you and I, the children of God, have received an unshakable kingdom. And so I'm learning to actually trust in that unshakable kingdom of God that I'm a part of. And instead of looking at the waves and the chaos and all the havoc that it might be creating around me, I'm learning to focus my attention and to ground myself and center myself in this unshakable kingdom that God has given me, that can never be taken away from me, and it can never be dislodged from its roots.
Okay. So can I press in just a little more to your privacy?
Sure.
because I think that's terrific. I like that analogy a lot of the coral reef and the unrelenting waves. What does that actually look like? Are you spending, so if this year requires more focus on that unshakable kingdom, are you literally spending more time like reading the Bible, literally spending more time praying, literally spending more time listening, like expecting God to say something to your spirit that is having trouble focusing on the unshakable kingdom? Like literally, what are you doing to up your faith game?
So in the most practical sense, I'm not actually, if you had a stopwatch,
Okay.
I'm not actually spending more time.
Okay.
Okay. But the questions that I'm pressing into are different. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm not just trying to accumulate more Bible knowledge or do a Bible study,
Okay.
but I'm actually pressing into questions like, okay, God, where's the unshakable kingdom in this? What can I grab hold of that's actually part of the unshakable kingdom? And sometimes it's a Bible verse that God takes me to. Sometimes it's a principle I've known all of my life, like one that I just talked about. We walk by faith, not by sight. And God would say to me what we just said in our previous teaching series: Ron, get your eyes up off of the challenging circumstances and put them on me. And I've got this, okay? I'm not going to do it for you, but I will do it through you. And that spawns a conversation. Okay, God, if you're going to do it through me, first of all, give me the right perspective, because it's hard for me to do the right thing with the wrong perspective. So give me the right perspective. And then once he's given me the perspective, now what do you want me to do?
Okay. Yeah, that helps. Bring it home. That helps.
Yeah.
I can resonate with that too. I really appreciate the clarity of like, I'm not necessarily spending more time. I'm just asking different questions. Even that right there is like, oh, you're right. It seems so obvious once you say it, because of course the circumstances have changed entirely. It makes sense that the conversations we're having with God would have topic changes to them. And that just gives me some insight into how I might be switching my prayer time or my conversation time with God to make it more effective. Because I obviously, by my question, I was defaulting to these circumstances are harder than the average circumstance, and therefore I need more. And I love the fact that you're pointing out, no, I maybe just need different. I maybe just need different. Okay, so related to this, I've been thinking a lot about the concept of managing hope. And by that, I mean that I have begun to see hope as not a thing that I'm hoping to, that I would like to receive from some cosmic somewhere, that I'm seeing hope as a plant to be watered and fed. And the more I manage that little plant, the healthier and more vibrant it is and the more fruit it gives me back. Do you resonate with that concept at all? Are you managing hope?
Yes. I just want to say anybody that's not managing hope during this time is losing hope. That's just the nature of what we're in.
Okay.
And while you were talking, a verse came to mind, which is one of my favorite verses in Scripture. And Peter, it comes from the pen of the Apostle Peter, who says in the first chapter of his first book, he says, God has given us new birth into a living hope.
And, ooh, that's cool.
Yeah. And when I think about that living hope, there's two or three things that come to mind. Number one, it's living, which means it's not static.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It means that it's ever changing, which means it can be continually fresh and new and growing. And notice Peter says we were given new birth into this. It's like we're little children with a new toy, right? And we have to grow with it. Another thing that it means is anything that's living can grow. Anything that's dead can't.
Yeah.
So God's given us a faith that could actually grow. And I love your picture. If I nurture it and water it and fertilize it, it can grow. If I neglect it, it's like every other living thing, it will die. That's why I said, if anybody's not managing hope, they're actually losing hope. And then the third thing is, and maybe this is the most important one during this time, a living thing can recover from injury, but a dead thing can't. And God has given us a living hope. And maybe our hope took a big hit during 2020. It's a living hope. It can recover. But like anything else that's injured, you have to tend to it. You have to treat it as if it's injured. You have to nurture it. And eventually, oftentimes, for instance, a broken bone, if you're willing to set it and tend to it, when it heals, it's actually stronger. Yeah. And so, yes, I am managing hope by doing all those things.
Okay, I really like that analogy, but I don't literally know what you're doing to manage hope. Like literally, tangibly, what are you doing to tend that little living plant?
Okay. I'm going to go back to our last teaching series. Okay. Look up. Okay. God continually says to me, when I start to panic and lose hope and things seem unmanageable and they seem bigger than I am and I don't see a potential positive outcome, God continually says to me, Ron, look up. Put your eyes on me. I've got this. In fact, Ron, in spite of how tough this looks, I am actually at work in this for your good.
Okay, so I'm chuckling over here because my next question I wanted to ask you is, how do you answer the accusation that, of course, Ron, pastor of X number of decades, is, able to manage his hope and able to live by faith? So, I already know that's my next question for you. Don't answer that yet. I am laughing because your answer is like, well, of course you are. Of course your answer is God and your conversations with God. So just for those of you, you are going to have to answer the question about it seems like you have an unfair advantage because of how many years you have been engaging with these conversations with God, how well you know your Bible. So I could be talking about a plant and you're coming up with a Bible verse that backs it up. It seems like you have an unfair advantage. For the rest of you, I was thinking your answer might be something a little more similar to my answer, which is I have really pressed into friends who are fostering their own hope. And I haven't abandoned my friends who are drowning. But my friends who are really struggling to manage their own hope, I go over and invest in that friendship in a way to give them something. But I am purposefully pressing in more with friends who are managing their hope because their hope is contagious. I have changed my social media feeds. I have filled my Instagram following hashtags and following people that are constantly giving out their message of hope. I'm very tangibly bringing in voices of hope, and I am putting in serious restrictions on my mind. Is this helping me to think more about this in managing my hope, or is it shriveling up my little hope plant? So I'm also seriously being the master of my own thoughts in order to manage this hope. So I was thinking you would have things like that. Of course your answer is.
Okay. Just in the fairness of whatever unfair advantage you think I might have.
Yes. Okay? Help us understand how you don't have an advantage. What are you doing?
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Number one, I just want to say I'm almost 70. And everyone who is a Christian and has been a Christian for decades has an unfair advantage. It's not unfair. It's an earned advantage of having walked with God for a long time. So for everybody who's maybe been a Christian for a long time. Good for you. And for everybody who's just in the beginning of this journey, hey, that's all out there for you. And that day is coming for you as you continue to add to this experience you have of walking with God. Now,
we're earning it now, all of us. Even if you're 70, you're still earning that privilege to rest in peace because you've learned the skill. Yeah, that's true.
But I do want to say one other thing. For instance, I'm continually feeding my mind on things that will grow my hope. Right. And one of the things that I'm using right now is with you today. These are my friends at New Life who are finding ways to nurture their own hope. And I'm thinking, I've watched a number of them recently, but my mind continually goes back to one that was submitted by Melinda Bauer, who happens to be a shepherd, right? And her with you today about what she does when they get ready to move the sheep to where they need to be, that she actually walks the path and looks at it through the eyes of the sheep. And she notices the puddles that they will walk single file around. And she notices something white that will frighten them. And she removes the obstacles to make sure that path is good for the sheep. And then she takes the sheep in that path. That was so helpful for me to know that Jesus goes ahead of me. And every path he's taking me on, and that includes everyone in 2020. Every path, he is actually removing obstacles, and he's doing whatever he can do to make sure that path is just right for me. Not that it won't be scary and not that it won't be easy, but it is my path, and it takes me to where he knows is great for me. That helps my hope.
That's awesome. Thank you for both of those. One, I love that with you today as well. That really spoke to me, but also just your admission. It's so easy to sit where we are and envy other people's whatever, that their path looks easier. Or in this case, my envy of you that you seem to just naturally live by faith. That's actually a correction of me to say what you said about the advantage, to remind me that that's not an enviable thing, that's an earned thing. And it's so encouraging to me, like, to stay the course, that this is a thing that you get as you build your faith every day. It is a muscle. So thank you for that. That was really helpful. Okay, I promised that after I would poke at you, that you could ask me one question. And I'm a little bit afraid that your one question is going to be as hard as all my questions put together. But here's your chance.
Okay. Now, this is not going to be a difficult question. Okay. But I know that 2020 had tons of challenge for all of us. And 2021 has just as much challenge. It was not lost on me that 10 minutes into 2021, the power went out at my house. And it was like, oh, and I thought this year was going to be better.
Yep.
And instead,
you got 8 more minutes than I did.
Yes.
Mine was at 12:02.
Yes. So there's tons and tons of challenge. But I also know that packaged in the middle of all this challenge, there have been some unexpected gifts that the pandemic has brought us. Mm-hmm. So what's an unexpected gift that the pandemic brought you either last year or is bringing you now?
That's a good one. I got two. And one kind of leads to the other one. But I am a person who really likes challenge. I really enjoy challenge, and therefore I highly value grit. And one of the ramifications of that, though, is that I have a propensity towards workaholism and an out of balance pace of life. And it's a downside of a thing that I really love, but it's a true downside. And the pandemic was a restrictor on me that at first I did not welcome because it utterly changed the form of challenge. And I was kind of liking the challenge that I was on. So at first it was a restrictor that I chafed against. I really struggled with that, but I am learning new levels of grit that I did not previously have. Several times in this year, as I have been complaining in my conversations with God, he has said some version of, hey, Ange, you know that picture of yourself that you see out in the future, your idealized self, that person you want to be? You can't become that person without things like this that get you there. So like, I want to be a person of deep resilience. Well, you don't get there taking the easy path. I want to be a person of expansive love, like unlimited amounts of love. Well, you don't get there without learning to love your enemies. Like this season has been full of things I would not have picked for myself, but consistently throughout it, God is like, but I'm using it for things that you've asked me for. So maybe you could just get what you want out of it. So, but specifically in answer to your question, the pace of life requirement, it turns out that I'm thirsty for a challenge, but I was also thirsty for a season of a different pace. And I have really enjoyed that, which leads to my second silver lining gift, which is this season with Jason. And I know not everybody is sharing their home with people that are easy to get along with or sharing their home with anyone at all. I cannot even imagine going through this pandemic living alone. I look at families and my heart just goes out to the chaos that is the homeschooling and all of that. And I just empathize as best I possibly can. I think, though, that there is a unique challenge for whomever is living alone during this pandemic. And my heart I just don't even know the depths to which I could explain it goes out. So I recognize this is maybe a gift that I get to have that hurts to hear from someone else listening. But I have an amazing husband who is on a huge growth trajectory, and that has meant a lot of disequilibrium in our home. As there's challenge for everybody, I'm on a growth trajectory, he's on a growth trajectory, and when you've hitched your wagons together, every time somebody's on a growth trajectory, it messes up the homeostasis. And we're both messing with our equilibrium. And so it has not been the easiest year in our marriage, but it has been rich. And his tenacity to stay at this, our determination to make this be a tool to use for our marriage to be even better, I just can't, will forever look back at this season and be like, we forged some serious marriage. I don't know, chutzpah? I don't know. Like we forged something in this process, and we are different because of it.
Well, that's a great answer, and I that's not a surprise to me, but I think that's an awesome thing. I just want to say something for those who don't have a significant other and they're going through this alone. I think it's important for them to realize that the same God who provided Jason for you is providing what they need for those very same gaps and for those very same challenges. Only it's not coming in the form of a marriage partner or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a fiance or whatever. It's coming in the form of friends. It's coming, God's not limited. He can bring those resources to us however he wants. And the great thing about him is he will tailor the resources to who we are and where we are in life. Yeah. So I think
we put marriage up on a pedestal that God does not put on a pedestal. I think when you think about how God sees intimacy and how he intended family to function, he did not limit family in the way that we limit our definition of family. So I think that's why it's like, I'm somewhat hesitant to talk about this particular gift because of how it might reinforce our society's idealization of marriage. God is providing. Jason and I can't have kids, and that is a gap for me, and that causes angst. And yet I look around, and God is providing something that touches that heart space for me. And he keeps redefining what family looks like. That is a much more nuanced and full definition than our society would do. And I like that. God's kingdom is not pinnacled at marriage.
Right.
Like, that's not the thing. So,
No.
okay. All right, that's fun. Okay, last thing, I asked you to bring a song with you that is really speaking to you in this season. And we're going to play it next. But what did you pick and why did you pick it? Why is this song speaking to you right now?
So about 6 or 7 years ago, God really challenged our worship leaders to write original music during that season. And they responded in amazing ways. And the end result of that was a CD that was recorded live at New Life. And it's so fun for me to pick up that CD and listen to it because it brings back lots of memories and all that kind of stuff. But there's great challenge in every song on that CD. And one of them, I think, just ties into everything we've talked about today. If you can picture an ocean, and it's an angry ocean, and it's filled with big waves, and you're on a boat, and the fog is out there, and it's really hard to see clearly, and you know you're approaching land, but you don't know where it is, and you know that the land that you want to stand on could also destroy your ship and could also take your life. You're looking for some sort of clarity. And when you think back about 2020 and where we are right now, we're in an angry sea. And there's division in our country, and there's division in the world, and there's racial injustice, and there's a pandemic, and there's loss of jobs, and there's kids having to be homeschooled at home and distance learning, and college and high school seniors that are missing their senior year, and college students that can't even be on the campus. It's an angry sea. And finding landmarks is hard because our traditional landmarks have largely been taken away from us. And there's one thing that the captain of every ship looks for, and that's a lighthouse. Because the captain knows the lighthouse is on land. The captain knows that by looking at the lighthouse, he can tell about how far he is from either safety or destruction, depending upon how he or she manages that. And Jesus said, I'm the light of the world. And there's something about Jesus that brings such clarity and dependability. And you know what? If we can keep our eyes on the lighthouse, we will never be lost at sea because it's the lighthouse that leads us home. And that's why I picked this song.
I love it. Okay, New Life. We're going to enjoy the song. I would say just close your eyes and let these lyrics seep in. Faith wins.
Shine a light for me to see.
Well, thank you for joining us today. What a great conversation we got to listen in on, and I'm excited for this series, Faith Wins, and the upcoming conversations where we'll continue to talk together about this idea of faith and how we have a God we can put our trust in, and that faith is what brings us through the difficulties of life, because there's a God at work in our story. Jesus is on the scene and he is for us. And so my hope is that you got a glimpse of that for yourself today. Some encouragement, some inspiration to keep walking forward into this life Jesus has for you. You know, there's a lot of things coming up in this year for us as a church, so many different moving parts. And earlier this week, I gave an update on our working plans at this point to come back together for regular Sunday gatherings in an outdoor space. And so I want to make sure you don't miss that. So I want to encourage you, go to our YouTube page, go to our New Life website page, and you'll get that information there. But we've got some plans that are underway, and I want to make sure you're in the know about that. There's a link in the chat space if you're watching right now that'll take you there too if you want to check that out. But it's important that you're in the loop, you're in the know for a few reasons. So you know what's coming up, so you know how you can participate, and so you can also be praying for us as a church and as a leadership team as we keep making plans to move forward. So have a great day. Happy Valentine's Day. We love you and cannot wait until the day when we are gathered together again. Bye-bye.